Let's continue with event handling. Listening to events. We can use the von directive, which we typically shorten to the @ symbol, to listen to DOM events and run some JavaScript when they're triggered. The usage would be von : click equals handler, or with the shortcut @click equals handler. The handler value can be one of the following: inline handlers, inline JavaScript to be executed when the event is triggered, similar to the native onClick attribute. Method handlers, a property name or path that points to a method defined on the component. Inline handlers. Inline handlers are typically used in simple cases. For example, we have a count ref with value 0, and at click we increase the value of the count. Method handlers. The logic for many event handlers will be more complex though, and likely isn't feasible with inline handlers. That's why von can also accept the name or path of a component method you'd like to call. For example, we have a name ref and we have a function greet. And on the button we have a handler, which is the function name greet. So when we click this button, the greet function will run. We can try it in the playground if we want. We import the ref, we declare this name, which is a reactive reference, and we have the function and the button, and this thing is going to print an alert. Hello view, the first line, and then if there is an event, it will print the second thing, which is the event target tag name, which in this case is a button. So far so good, easy. A method handler automatically receives the native DOM element object that triggers it. In the example above, we are able to access the element dispatching the event via event target tag name. True. If in the handler we use a function, this function automatically takes as a parameter the native DOM event object, the event. Method versus inline detection. The template compiler detects method handlers by checking whether the von value string is a valid JavaScript identifier or property access path. For example, foo bar, and foo square bar are treated as method handlers, while foo parentheses and count plus plus are treated as inline handlers. Yeah, clear. Calling methods in inline handlers. Instead of binding directly to a method name, we can also call methods in an inline handler. This allows us to pass the method custom arguments instead of the native element. So say we have a function, say, which takes a messages argument and spits out an alert with the message. We can do on the event handler, just call the function and pass it whatever message we want. We explicitly call the function in the event handler instead of having click equals say and that's it, which would take then automatically as an argument the event. We explicitly call the event handler here and we pass it whatever argument we want. Okay. Accessing event argument in inline handlers. Sometimes we also need to access the original DOM event in an inline handler. You can pass it into a method using the special $event variable or use an inline arrow function. So we have the button at click and then we call this warm function explicitly and we pass it like that. Okay, I didn't know we could do that. That's a bit like kind of hidden, but okay, sure, fair enough. Interesting. So I'm gonna actually put it in my notes because I did not know this thing. we can use event to access DOM event. And also we can use this thing. We have an arrow function, we pass in the event as an argument, and we use it here again. This I knew. That's how I usually did this thing. And then the function takes a message and an event, sure. Event modifiers. It is a very common need to call event.prevent_default or event.stop_propagation inside event handlers. Although we can do this easily inside methods, it would be better if the methods can be purely about data logic rather than having to deal with dumb event details. To address this problem, Vue provides event modifiers for VON. Recall that modifiers are directive postfixes denoted by a dot. We have these ones: stop, prevent, self, capture, once, passive. And they act on event listeners. So for example, this at click.stop will stop prevent events propagation. And these are just JavaScript things. For example, or well, we can go to stop propagation site javascript.info, which is a site I particularly like. And in here, stop bubbling. A bubbling event goes from the target element straight up. Normally it goes upwards till HTML and then to a document object, and some events even reach window, calling all handlers on the path. But any handler may decide that the event has been fully processed and stop the bubbling. So yeah, this stop propagation means stop bubbling here. And as you can see, if we stop propagation of this event, the event doesn't bubble up to here. So if this, yeah, that's what it says. This has also an on-click handler, but this won't trigger because of the stop propagation. We also have this prevent default, which prevents the default behavior of the event. For example, in a form submission, the submit event will automatically send a request and refresh the page. So we can prevent that from happening with the prevent default method on the event, or with the modifier, the event modifier like this. Then we have chained modifiers, click, stop, prevent. We can have just the modifier. I didn't know that. Okay, interesting. I'm gonna make a small note of this. And then we have only trigger handler if event target is the element itself, not from a child element. And we have capture, once, passive. I'm not gonna go through those. Well, this means it happens only once. This and this, I don't remember now what they are. This is related to the like, look, there is use capture, Boolean value indicating whether events of this type will be dispatched to the registered listening before being dispatched to any event target beneath it in the DOM tree. Events that are bubbling upward through the tree will no longer trigger a listener designated to use capture. Event bubbling and capturing are two ways of propagating events that occur in an element that is nested within another element. When both elements have registered a handle for that event. Don't know what it is now. What if we look for it here? There's another phase of event processing called capturing. It is rarely used in real code, but sometimes can be useful. The standard DOM events describes three phases of event propagation. Capturing phase, the event goes down to the element. So yeah, phase one, there is an event, and then we go down the tree apparently until we find the event that triggers it or something like that. And then bubbling is kind of the opposite thing. Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I understand this thing, but well, I don't understand what it does, but let's skip it because that's not something we care about. We don't need to understand everything. Passive Boolean value that if true indicates that the function specified by listener will never call prevent default. Okay. That's probably for performance reasons. If a listener knows that we are never gonna call prevent default, it's kind of more performant, I think. So that's the other identifier, modifier, capture passive. All right. Well, we have these modifiers. So far, so good. Usually, what we'll want most of the time is this thing in a form in the submit event called prevent. So the page is not reloaded. Tip: order matters when using modifiers because the relevant code is generated in the same order. Therefore, using click.prevent.self will prevent all clicks, while click.self.prevent will only prevent clicks on the element itself. Mhm. I see. So this, then this, then this. The order is from left to right. The capture ones and passive modifiers mirror the options of the native API of the native add event listener method. Well, it explains it here. Use capture mode when adding the event listener. An event targeting an inner element is handled here before being handled by that element. Okay. The click event will be triggered at most once. The scroll event's default behavior will happen immediately instead of waiting for unscroll to complete in case it contains event default. Ah, that's why. That's the scroll just happens. So if we use passive, if passive is false, that would mean that when the event happens, for example, a scroll event, the entire code inside the handler would have to run before the actual scroll takes place, blocking the scrolling behavior, just to make sure, or just in case that the handler does not have a prevent default call. With a passive true, it's like telling, look, we are not gonna prevent this event, so you can just do it, and then run the code. I see. The passive modifiers typically used with touch event listeners for improving performance on mobile devices. Do not use passive and prevent together, because passive already indicates to the browser that you do not intend to prevent the event's default behavior, and you will likely see a warning from the browser if you do so. Key modifiers. When listening for keyboard events, we often need to check for specific keys. View allows adding key modifiers for v-on or add when listening for key events. This will only call submit when the key is enter. When the key up is enter, we call submit. You can directly use any valid key names exposed via keyboard event key as modifiers by converting them to kebab keys. Let's take a look at this. So we can use all that. Alt graph, caps lock, control, fn, penlog, hyper, meta, numlock, enter, tab, arrow down, and home, copy. we can use copy, cell. There's so many options here. Escape, cancel, pause, play, eject, power. The hell is this Japanese keywords? There's a lot of things here. Dead keywords for Linux, function keys, phone keys, multimedia, audio controls, TV controls, media controller. Oh my god, this is multi-device, speech recognition, close, mail. Okay, there is a bunch of keys here that we could use. Only keyboard event. Yeah, there were all keys there. And we need to use kebab case. Okay, in the above example, the handler will only be called if event key is equal to page down. Key aliases. View provides aliases for the most commonly used keys. Enter, tab, delete, escape, space, up, down, left, right. System modifier keys. You can use the following modifiers to trigger mouse or keyboard event listeners only when the corresponding modifier key is pressed. Ctrl-Shift Meta. For Macintosh keyboards, Meta is the command key. For Windows is the Windows key. On Sun Microsystem keyboards, Meta is marked as a solid diamond. On certain keyboards, Meta is labeled Meta. On symbolic keyboards, Meta is labeled Meta. For example, Alt plus Enter. Input keyup.alt.enter clear. This will run only if we press the combination Alt Enter. So we can. That's pretty cool, man. Control click. Click dock control. Do something. Can we do? So this means we can do stuff like let's see. We have a button. Click me. Then we have a click event. Click event listener with enter. And we're gonna console.log enter. And then we're gonna do click dot control console.log control. And if we open the console, we click here, cannot read properties of undefined reading log. Something is broken here. Let's try to run control wait. Let's call it on click message. Wait, on click equals message arrow console.log message. And then we are gonna put on click here and call it like enter control. Let's clean the console and then let's click the button. Oops, enter is being clicked. Control and then we have the exact. The exact modifier allows control of the exact combination of system modifiers needed to trigger an event. Click control. This will fire even if Alt or Shift is also pressed. It will only fire when Control and no other keys are pressed. Click Control Exact. It will only fire when no system modifiers are pressed. Click dot exact. Okay, let's go and try it. Click dot exact. Exact. On click. Nothing. Let's call click. Here let's do Alt because Enter is a bit hard. So Alt dot exact. Control dot exact. So if we just click here, if we press Shift and click, nothing happens. Let's clean this thing. If we press Alt and click, there you go, and Control, there you go, and Alt and Control, nothing happens. Shift Alt, yeah, nothing happens. Okay, cool. So the exact modifier. Mouse button modifiers are left, right, middle. These modifiers restrict the handler to events triggered with a specific mouse button. That's really cool. So wait, if I click here with a middle button, no, nothing happens. On click dot right exact, on click right button, it actually works. I see that increasing. And on click middle exact, on click middle, then if I click with the middle mouse, it actually works. You see the middle increasing here. And with the right click, it's just regular click. Not right, but left, sorry. Left. Let's make it a bit more explicit, adding left there. And you see it works. Left. Let's clean this up. So wait, clean it up. Oh, why doesn't it clean it up? There you go. I was pressing this thing, but that's why. Left, middle, right. Control, Alt, nice. All right. Next thing is going to be form input bindings after a little break.